to this hello and welcome to this anti-war video. And the title is "Why Can't We Be Friends? Russia," in parentheses. Why can't the United States and Russia be friends? I was watching Fox War Network this morning. I mean, Fox News Network, they call it. And they were talking about, that Vladimir Putin, he said that Russia will respond and target not only the intermediate range missiles in Europe, but the headquarters of those intermediate range missiles, meaning the United States. And you'll notice if you watch Fox and CNN and et cetera, et cetera. Oh, and I'm drinking Andy Gator. The new stovepipe can. I did a video review to post on my regular channel, not this alternative channel. They said it was going to warm up today. There's the Kansas City Southern Railroad. They said it was going to warm up today, like 80. Now they're saying 77. It's still damp and rainy. It's 61 degrees. I put this long sleeve on. It's not getting like they said it was going to get. In other words, pleasant. You hear that screeching? Sound like somebody, it's like music. What's going on out there? Going on with the Kansas City Southern Railroad Company. All right. Where'd I put my phone? I think I left it in my vehicle. I hope no one's trying to call me. All right. This shirt is too big for me. Anyway, that's irrelevant. Anti-war. Should the United States and the Russian Federation be friends with each other? Our contention, and I'm saying the anti-war viewpoint, is yes, the United States and the Russian Federation should be friends. Now, if you watch Fox and CNN and CBS, they say, oh, Vladimir Putin, he's somewhat like a dictator. He's dictatorial. He's authoritarian. And then there was this thing yesterday on Fox talking about, see, I watched CNN for about 3 years, and then I said, okay, I'm going to watch Fox for about 2 years to see if it's different. It's not really that different. It's kind of like liberal versus paleo-conservative. What am I saying? Liberal versus neoconservative. And we know neoconservative is an adjunct or development, a presentation of Trotskyite theoretics. You say, well, Trotskyite, but that's communism. Right. Now, you got it. Now, okay. Nice can. Everybody's going to these stovepipes. First time they've had a canned Andy-Gator. All right. In the American establishment, the American New York banking liberal establishment that has ruled America since at least 1861, right? Their attitude is that Russia is a bad country with a bad president, with bad ideas, and that we need to rein them in, the evil world trying to conquer the world, Russians and all this business. If we study the history of Russia carefully, we will find that the world was indifferent to Russia. And when I say the world, I mean Western civilization, United States and Great Britain. You really got to go back to 1688, 1689, when Great Britain became the empire. They became an imperial country with the ascension of the Stuarts, who overthrew the legitimate Stuarts. When the Stuart line, King James I, I mean to say King James II of the House of Stuart, was overthrown by the Parliament and their Stuart conspired Protestant Stuart conspiratorial allies. But we don't want to get into too much into that. But Great Britain, the world leader, was indifferent to Russia. Okay, they don't care about Russia. Who was Great Britain's biggest enemy? France. We got to go after France. France. Okay. So finally, with Russia's help, I might add, finally, the British took down France in 1815 at the Battle of Waterloo. France will never be the great power after that. Oh, they're a world power, but they're always under the British thumb after that. See, now they go from being the enemy to, what you call a tag-along power, a second-rate power. You could ask, why did France ever do this? What advantage did they gain from being a tag-along to Great Britain? I would say the same thing. Got attacked by Germany in 1870. Well, they declared war on Germany, actually. In 1870, they just got attacked because their military was inferior and they lost. Then they then the British get France, worked up to an extent to get into a war with Germany in 1914, what am I saying? Then the British pumped France up again in 1939 to go to war with Germany again. So France gets all these attacks and doesn't give them a whole lot of advantage. All right, but let's go back. So the British try to take down France. They use Russia's help to take down France 1815. Okay, fine. And immediately they pivot. Now, the British are very good at pivoting. They say, okay, that project is finished. Now let's turn and go after the next threat to our world domination, which was Russia, because Russia, under the Tsars, the house of the Romanovs, I don't know why this won't stay straight over this, King Cobra can't. The house of Romanov, the dynasty, the Romanovs. The Russians say, well, we defeated Napoleon in the French Revolution. Let's set up a holy alliance. All the conservative countries can team up and stop the revolution, the Freemasonic, et cetera, revolution. Anti-Christian revolution. So they say, let's have a holy alliance. Spain, Bourbon Spain, the Bourbon French, now, after 1815, the Bourbons are back in power. Austria under the Habsburgs, ultra-conservative. Russia. Let's do this. Well, the British say, oh, no, I mean, what are you talking about, a holy alliance? Their attitude is, we're not building this project upon Christian values. We're building this upon secular values. We will dominate according to this York Rite, Scottish Rite construct. You understand this enlightenment, but it's going to be under our direction, not these French people. All right. It's going to be a very buttoned down world project, drinking sherry in a nice little glass, in a drawing room, very measured speech, and all of these wonderful things. The French were too loud, crass, showing too many playing cards, too continental, too explicit with their revolutionary ideals. The British lodges, so they say we have to be more implicit, covert, not overt, implied revolution, not in less loud and bloody. The French, they don't know how to do things so smoothly. We have to do things in a gradual. It's like the tortoise and the hare. They want to be the hare. They're running along, wearing themselves up. We want to be like the tortoise. Slow and steady wins the race. To build this paradise on earth, this tower, we will build the tower to heaven. Okay, so the British say, oh, we're going to do it, but we're running it. You know, that's always their attitude. If it happens, it's coming from London and London only. And maybe with some help from New York and Washington, D.C. as we see fit. Okay. So they begin to target Russia. We don't want to join the Holy Alliance because we're not promoting holy things. So we want to, and if you notice carefully in world history, they begin to target Russia. Russia becomes enemy number one. And the British launch war. They make threats against Russia, and then they launch a war against Russia in 1856, 1853, the Crimean War, which turned out to be a fiasco. And then they threaten a world war against Russia in 1877, 1878, after the Treaty of that ended the Russian-Turkish War. And the British take the side of the Muslims against the Christian country of Russia. The Russians say, how ironic. You're taking the side of these murderers to fight a fellow Christian country. You are showing your true colors, and they're not what you portray them to be. So now Russia is a target. And we know Russia was a target of revolution. You start having communist revolutionaries in Russia. They targeted Russia. The Bolsheviks, the Mensheviks, all these things. The revolution did start in France. It did not succeed there. It's still there. We know France is run by a revolutionary government today in 2019. But it's a conservative revolutionary government, like in Mexico. It's not a communist revolutionary government, okay? The communists tried to take over France in 1793. You saw what happened there with the Reign of Terror. They tried it again in 1871 with the Commune, the Paris Commune again. The red flags everywhere. They murdered the Archbishop of Paris. They kill all the Christians. It's here. It's world communism. But then the French revolutionary government, with the help of right-wing groups, counterattack and kill the communists. Okay. And we won't go into the history of France. Okay, so now Russia has a right-wing, traditional, ultra-conservative, old-type government. But they had a kind-hearted czar. He wants to help the people. So in 1862, he freed the serfs, which is the slaves. Russia was a slave country. A serf is like a slave, except they come with they're like furniture in a house. They come with the house. You can't sell the slaves down the river. You buy the manor, you buy the whole plantation, and you get what comes with it. So the serfs were to the manor born. They had to stay on the manor, the plantation. All this rain is driving me crazy. Okay. But the Tsar Nicholas II felt sorry for these people. He wants to modernize his backward, illiterate country. Let's free the serfs. And he said, after this date in 1862, no one born after this date can be a serf. They didn't immediately free all the serfs, but no one born after this date can be a serf. So you gradually wash it away, which could have been done in the United States without a war killing over 600,000 soldiers, I might add. But then you can't have an empire based in D.C. and Washington, D.C., in New York City. The communist revolutionaries in Russia, like Lenin, not his real name, Ulyanov. We must kill the Tsar because he is going to help the country. And if Russia becomes a nice middle-class country, no one's going to go for a revolution. You know, who do communists hate the most? Reformers who want to make the country better. No, the communists want the country to be worse so that the people will fall for their lies. It's like in America. We hate this man because he wants to make America great again. He wants to reform the country. He wants to increase prosperity. He wants to increase peace and racial, improve racial relations. So he's the target. He's the evil one. We cannot have reform. We must have revolution. We must have hatred. We must have animosity. We must have racial problems. We must have incidents. We must have all these things. Whoa, hold on, let me go shut these windows. They said the weather was going to get better, it's getting worse. Okay, sorry about that, but you know, it's going to get to 77 today. I don't see how that's going to happen. All right. So they killed the Tsar, and we know we're not going into the whole history of Russia and all of that. There was a communist revolution in 1917. They take over, start that mass murder program, killing all the people they can kill, who are enemies or perceived enemies, or who look like an enemy, or might know somebody who had a relative who once thought about being an enemy. So they're out there killing, murdering, everything, concentration camps, everything else. The British, as we know, took a pause from targeting Russia. You say, why would they put Russia on the back burner? We talked about this in the past. Because a new enemy in the eyes of Great Britain, you understand, popped up in 1871. The German Empire, the Second Reich. Germany now is an empire again, based in Berlin this time, not Vienna. They say, ooh, these people are so dangerous. They eat sausage and drink beer and eat sauerkraut and pretzels and wear leather pants. So the British say this is a threat. And Germany very conveniently fell into their trap and did everything they could to allow the British to make pretexts against them to attack them. Because at that time and today, 2019, these countries have this fantasy that alliances will protect them. You know, the United States government, including Trump, they say, well, he's questioned alliances, though, you see. He's a little smarter with his Jedi mind tricks than the average moron. These elites who run New York City and DC, they're not really that smart. They think they are, but they're not. That's their downfall. They're not as smart as they think they are. But they think alliances will make us strong. Alliances, we'll get all these friends and they'll help us. Yeah, okay. So the Germans got that same mindset. We'll have allies and this will help us be strong. No. It'll help you get into a war. And so Germany fell into this trap of having allies. You say, well, the British had allies. Yeah, but the British are running the show. You understand? You understand? They're making the rules. They're setting up the game board. You could have a lot better success when you're not only running the game and playing the game, but you're constructing the whole rule book. And the other guy doesn't even realize you're looking at his cards and he can't see your cards. This is a great advantage. This is a great advantage. So the Germans, who are wonderful at inventing little, intricate devices, right? Little gauges and gadgets. They're very good at that. The British are better at like running the whole world and setting up world empires. So the Germans fall into the British trap, 1914. And since getting beaten like a dog wasn't good enough for them, they fell into the trap again in 1939 and got beat worse. So maybe they start realizing they're the puppet, and then they're being controlled by the puppet master. You could start to see that if you're being maneuvered into every situation and you keep falling for it, then maybe you keep falling for it. Maybe you're not in control of your own destinies, so to speak. All right, so we go back to Russia. Now, you say, well, what about Russia? Well, the British are very clever, past masters of domination. You say they used Russia to fight Germany. Of course. You say, well, you mean if you wanted to kill somebody, you would use them temporarily to gain an advantage and then go after them later? Exactly. You're on the target list, but we have a more serious target at this particular moment, which is Germany, Berlin. And so we're going to use you to beat them, and then we'll beat you. So Russia helped to their great detriment, right? Helped Great Britain defeat Germany. Now, when the chips were down, did the British help the Russian rulers to survive? No, they did not. Okay, they were all murdered. These are Nicholas II, Romanov, his wife, the Empress, his children, the great crown prince, the great princesses were murdered by these communists. And you can imagine what sort of retribution I would entertain in my mind about that. But anyway, but we don't want to go into all of that because we're trying to keep things on a measured scale at this time. So, but they didn't really have time to go after Russia after that, communist Russia, because now Germany revitalizes. So there's the new Germany, the Third Empire, the National Socialist Empire, the Third Reich, whatever you want to call it. So they say, oh, no, we're going to take them. So they take them down. It only takes 12 years. So it really wasn't. Well, I mean, it cost 50 million lives, but you say, well, why nitpick? Right. So they took them down. And there's no third round. You know, it's not 3 strikes and you're out. I think with Germany, 2 strikes, you're out. You're staying down. You're not coming back for another fight. You could see that. That's it. They're finished. Bye-bye, Germany. They're nothing but a puppet country today. Puppet of the Western America, British axis. The Washington, D.C., London, New York, Washington, D.C., New York City, London axis. Okay. So Germany is out. No more a game player. So you'll notice if you study history very carefully, which most people will not take the time to do, that in 1944, the relationship between the United States, Great Britain, and their Russian ally, the Soviet Union, began to break down. The relationship between the Western allies, which is the United States and Great Britain, of course. You say, what about Canada? What did I just say? The United States and Great Britain, of course. The relationship in 1944 became very bad between the United States and Russia. That's when the Cold War began. You say 1948 or whatever, but it's 1944. The Cold War began in 1944. World War II was over essentially because Japan had no chance of winning and Germany had no chance of winning and Italy was already out the war. So that it was over. It was just a mopping up situation. You say, what about the Battle of the Bulge? What about, yes, that was very impressive and all of that, but Germany was not going to win. That was not going to happen. After 1942, really before that, but for absolutely after 1942, there was no way Germany was going to win that war. No way. Okay, that's not. You say, yeah, but what if they had invented a laser beam? Yeah, what if Rick Jones became the Hulk? Once it was obvious that Germany was out of the picture, essentially, now the United States and Great Britain and the Soviet Union start going at it again. And the Soviets said, well, we have our own interests. And London and Washington, D.C. say, no, you have no interests except to go with the program. So now we have this big showdown, 1944, 54, 64, 74, might have ended in 79, because remember, Richard Nixon said his goal was to end the Cold War. He said, he made that statement, my goal is to end the Cold War. And you didn't see him no more. You wouldn't be seeing him no more. He was dispatched. Bye-bye, Nixon. Can't have all this peace Nick stuff. Because if you study Richard Nixon very carefully, he was trying to make peace in the world. And he also made the bad mistake of stating that he wanted to eliminate nuclear weapons from the world. Oh, well, bye-bye to that. Okay, now, and then we had Carter and Reagan and all that. All right, so, well, the Soviet Union collapsed from their own termite-ridden existence. They tried to outspin the United States and Great Britain. That was an impossibility. They went bankrupt. They had a lot of ethnic problems within their empire. All their little countries started breaking off. Azerbaijan and Tajikistan and all that started breaking off. You say, well, the Vietnam War hurt the American economy. Yes, yes, it did very badly. But the Vietnam War bankrupted the Soviet Union. You see what I'm saying? That's what I tried to tell people. The Vietnam War did hurt the American economy, but it destroyed the Soviet Union. Think about that for a minute. People think of the Vietnam War as a separate war. It was not a separate war. I've tried to preach this sermon for 20 years. The Vietnam War was simply a battle of a war. You say, well, the United States lost. They lost. Well, you have to look at that a certain way. If you look at it in an infantile manner, in a technical sense, the United States did not exactly achieve the goals of that conflict. But if you take a macro geopolitical viewpoint of the Vietnam War, it was a success in the sense that, I'm saying if you approve of doing that, and I don't. I'm not saying I approve of that. I'm saying if you look at it from a Cold War viewpoint, it was a success because it did hurt the U.S. economy, but it destroyed the Russian economy. And only 15 short years later, the Soviet Union was in full collapse. So how can you call it a failure? You say, yeah, but 58,000 Americans were killed. What did I just tell you? I said I don't support all of this intervention anyway. The whole channel's called what? Look down there, anti-war. But sometimes you have to think as the enemy thinks. You see, you can't always think the way you can't use your own sentiment to promote a viewpoint. You have to, what did Michael Corleone say in The Godfather? You have to think the way the enemy thinks, not the way you want it to be. You think in the way they are thinking. It's very important strategic consideration. Although in the end, when you look at his story, he let emotion take over the, but that's a fantasy, but it's based on certain allegories related to real life. Okay, now, here we go to 1989, 1991, which if you're old enough, like myself, you remember the collapse of the Soviet Union and Romania, Germany, the communist dominated East Germany. I thought to myself in 1991, I said, here's a great opportunity now. The Communist Party's been run out of power in Russia. Communist governments are collapsing all around Europe, Eastern Europe. And I said, here's a great chance for world peace. In 1992, I was telling everybody, here's our chance. Here's the chance to grasp peace in the world. But then I was very troubled very quickly because I said, well, why? That's when I started to realize that the fix was in, if you want to call it the fix. This is bringing us to the summation or the nexus of the crisis. Because 1992, the communist government collapses, and now there's a new government in Russia, the Russian Federation. And their attitude was, we want to be friends in the world. Let's get rid of nuclear weapons, and we want peace in the world. But I was very curious because I noticed that the United States under Bush and Clinton, and the second Bush and Obama, and not so much Trump, but he's falling, unfortunately, he seems to be falling under the control of the neoconservatives. And yes, you can read into that. And you should. I I said in 1992 to all the people I talked to, I said, why is the United States still in NATO? Why aren't we getting rid of NATO? That's it. NATO needs to be dissolved. We need to take our troops out of Europe. The Russians can take their troops out of Europe, and we'll have peace, and we can be friends, because my whole attitude in 1992 was we can be friends now. It's over. But then I was very disturbed that the United States, now their policy was, we're going to kick the enemy while they're down. We're going to kick them while they're down. We beat them, and now we're going to kick them while they're down. Very dangerous. Very dangerous. We got you in a stranglehold, and we're going to keep kicking you. I said, this is not good. What's happening here? And then you have Bill Clinton, this arch imperialist, say, we're going to bomb Serbia. We're going to bomb Serbia with a terror bombing campaign in 1999, a Russian ally, on behest of Muslim terrorists. Now imagine this. Can you imagine this? Muslim terrorists are attacking Serbia, and the United States is going to bomb Serbia on behalf of Islamic terrorists. You say, no, I watched CNN. They said America is fighting a war against terror. Such is your fantasy. Such is your fantasy. Now, you say, does the story get worse? It does get much worse. Then Putin, who's a nationalist. Here's the first guy running Russia forever saying, I'm going to stand up for Russia. I'm going to do what's right for Russia. I'm not going to kowtow to these internationalists. Well, you know, now you know he's going to be enemy number one, because what does the international finance capitalist, London, New York, Washington, D.C., empire hate more than anything? A person that's a nationalist and doesn't think in a global international meaning, kowtowing to the Western elite program. So they target Russia so vociferously, and then they started to target Russian assets. We know under Bill Clinton, they started to target Libya, Syria, and they started the civil war in Syria in 2011 because Bashar al-Assad, who protected Christians, by the way, and if you want to get techno, Saddam Hussein in Iraq, who protected Catholics in Iraq. The Catholic Church was always safe in Iraq. Muslim terrorists were not allowed to enjoy comfort in Iraq. Iraq was a non-religious government. All religious minorities were protected, like in Syria, I might add. But our neoconservative opponent, and yes, you should read into that, decided that we don't need a government in Iraq that is protecting the Catholics. We don't need a government in Syria that is protecting Catholics of all things. Why is there a Christian presence in the Near East for the last 2,000 years? Here's a perfect opportunity to dislodge Christianity from the Near East. And so we had the invasion of Iraq in 2003, a Russian ally, I might add. Horrible war crime. The invasion of Syria in 2011 under Obama, another horrible war crime. And then Trump comes along and says, why are we doing all this? Now, you see, here's a guy who, thankfully, is not that educated by the elites. And he asks simple questions that a simple man asks, right? Simple people. Why are we fighting all these wars around the world? I mean, why are we against Russia and Syria? They're fighting the terrorists. We should be teaming up with them. And I said, it's going to be hell now. And they went after Trump like you would never believe. You saw it. And now he's confused. They're investigating him, meaning they're trying to find something they can get rid of him with. You know, they're trying to find some kind of pretext to get rid of the guy. Because the establishment says we cannot have friendship with Russia. Now, if Trump, theoretically, if Trump had been allowed to be a true president and enjoy the comfort of his powers and control foreign policy as a president is supposed to do, We would have made peace with North Korea and eventually pulled troops out of North Korea. Would have made peace with Syria, pulled American troops out of Syria. Would have made peace with Russia, pulled troops out of Russia. Would have made peace with North Korea, pulled troops out of Korea. This would be the Trump plan. Peace, peace, peace. This is what he preached. And I said, that's why they're going to bring the guy down. This is the reason. Because the American international finance capitalists power structure is not by any stretch of the imagination going to allow peace with Russia. Then you say, no, 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 you're wrong, you're wrong. I watch Fox. Hoorah. Look, believe me, I'm right. Okay? They're wrong. Because they preach war is the answer. Atom bombs are the answer. Killing civilians is the answer. Lying, cheating, stealing, making war in other countries is the answer. This is not the answer. This is a lie. It comes from hell. It's a satanic viewpoint of the world. It's evil. There's no getting around it. These are people that will teach you that war makes us safe and free. War does not make us either safe nor free. I'm going to keep preaching this message. I will never back down. This will not make friends. This will not make friends for me. This will make enemies. Marvel not that the world hates you. This is the message of Jesus Christ. And remember, he said, I came not to bring peace to the world. Not that he was coming to make violence, but that the message would not be accepted and that the response to the message would be extremely violent. This is what he meant. So you're not going to make a lot of friends and be in with the in crowd if you pursue the anti-war peace message. But you can't worry about that. You have to stick with peace today, peace tomorrow, and peace forever. Anti-war. War does not make you safe nor free. Even Trump sent out an implied message the other day when he started the Space Force. He said, this is our defense, he said, or maybe offense. He always drops these hints that he knows what the real story is. You say, oh, he's just stupid. He's boorish. He talks loud. He makes too many gestures with his hands. Believe me, he's like me. He is not fully in control. He knows this. He has a little bit of power, not very much. So he likes to throw in the little hints. He said, we are setting up our defensive program. He said, well, maybe offense, if you want to look at it that way. And then he went back to the store. I said, see, he's letting people know that he's trying to promote the anti-war program, but it is going to be very difficult. Will he survive his first term? We don't know. The establishment is very powerful. When you start preaching peace, you might go on a trip to Dallas and you might not come back from Dallas alive. Whatever. You got to watch it. These are dangerous people. These are hateful people. These are satanic people. These are reptiles. These are not human beings in the strictest sense of the word, if you want to, But so we just have to continue to promote the peace program. We want peace with Russia. We may not achieve it, but we're going to keep trying. We're going to keep trying. We'll never give up. So we're going to end this hangout by saying peace today, peace tomorrow, peace forever, non-intervention, anti-imperialism, anti-war. Love is the answer. Hatred is not the answer. And we wish everyone the best. Thank you. God bless you. And like Stuart Pickard would say in England, you take care.